So what you can view it as an experiment. We're running a code we start on Blue Waters to do stars during times episodes during their evolution. And I just spent a couple of minutes to give you an idea of what we are doing. Code. We look at a star in a, it's called a thermal. This lasts about 2 years, which is time star. We look in it, compute it for 1 day. Really no time. But a fair amount of time for Blue Waters, 1 day for the star, days for Blue, running with running on half the machine. And so this is a slice through it. Here's the star, which is sort of advanced white dwarf, convection zone. I'm burning here at producing 42 million times the luminosity. Stirring up this stuff is hydrogen, and if that gets injected, luminosity can spike up by another factor of 10, which is really a lot of luminosity. And doing this on Blue Waters, look at of this burnable fuel. We follow the burning. We steer that this burn in asymmetrical way. You get a lot of heat from the, and then a wave of burning goes around to the antipode, where again another release of energy which drives it back and it forth, and it ends up in the place last year over, and then we realized, well, it could possibly be because this corresponds to a particular star. How much energy it really wasn't. Turn it back on this year. Gratifyingly, it did really ugly. It had much more energy by a factor of 10, and we thought that's still well, we're still computing it. What I wanted, so that's the context of how we've been in this. Decide out whether this code could go on to the GPUs. Ability made that we could get a factor of 5 speed. We didn't, but we thought maybe we could, and so Pei-Hung Lin, now at the Lawrence Livermore Lab, volunteered to write a code translator, and this, and it was a lot of work. I would write a translator that much to us or anyone else sufficiently, and of course not known. But there are code in Blue Waters that use similar techniques, so we thought this was anyway. So I had with just one piece of the code, about 1/5. And it worked very well. Nice visit to Zurich. And it also worth doing. But it was important I could do these things, which if you've tried the GPU, compress the workspace that is kept chip for each thread down to essentially the flash, which is better than you really have to do a CPU, but on this to I had learned in Zurich threads, and you can ask me afterwards why you should never do that. And we needed to figure out how to the movement of on and off of the chip with computation. And so these where we kind of what this already code to adapt it to use cell processor, which was experience. And the idea then is that there we have in is a data structure packaged up little words in the which we call briquettes. If you did them in Fortran, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 or 5 dimensional array, the last address directly via a 5-dimensional. Okay, so it's somewhat involved. Our version, and it'll be even more involved. The idea was to do, if we went through all of this, ought to work for the and difficult Fortran expression. The present, what was running last year, can be produced by an automator written CFD build, written a student who got his PhD at Minnesota years ago. And so the idea, okay, if Pei-Hung Lin volunteers to write such a translator, which he did, all that this guy, and he probably will do it, is worth a try. Was to take from the experience and from the learn to do, which is to orchestrate the fetching of data from the GPU chip or CPU chip, and to with some computation, hopefully using up the data that you got the last time, and then implementation. We have to repeat that pattern 4 times in order to get one sort of output that we have, and this is an old, we'll change it a little bit. These they are sitting contiguous to the machine. Just read a whole one in advance. That was no problem. Dash it somewhere. That's fine. You can. And you which part of it when activity was to really restructure so that it knows its fashion, but in a way it consumes in the optimal way or near optimal. That on the GPU we can't get because it's too big, although it's tiny, and so we have to fetch a half, which means that we took one afternoon. Didn't make. So this is out of. We would go get half of this, and then we'd go get another half. The idea is that once it arrives, it's a little present for you. Then you update it, and The old algorithm did a very nice natural. One of these that's shaded there, that's just 16 cells, just the perfect length, and NVIDIA, we had to update 2 of them at once, and can also be, but it's just, but it's okay. Well, we had to do everything we did already quite a lot, and then we had to do some in the basic structure, parallelize it, machines. We had to fetch in the maximum amount you can get, which isn't very much at each time. And then the part that I really objected to, and the idea is that, well, this translator would ultimately do is allocation. Basically, 155 registers that we're allowed to save some to do something with. We figured we had about 2. And then you have to manage, which is outrageous. And you should never do it. And I tell you, bugs like I've never seen that took and taken. And I never want to do it again. But the point is, you had to do it at least. And how to write a translation. Okay, so what do we get out of all that? You get some idea. First, what do we get before? We got 70 gigaflops. It's about of the peak of the interlog, and sort of disappointed. In other CPUs that could deliver to our code about 30. In fact, that did, they were just great. So why 12%? And this is a theory. Really know. It's impossible to know, probably. That the reason it's only 12% is either one or problems. Few registers. There is too little bandwidth between the list and one of the. It's our conjecture for what. If that were different, we get on the Kepler. That's the. If we do this thing I did, which is part of why it by memory bandwidth only for that particular thing really were free. And if that were also true for the whole PPM code, then 500 gigaflops. Surprised that it isn't true. Okay, so this is what it does do. 121, which is 3.8, which is bad. Percent is just 121 gigaflops. It is a sector. Then the node that is kind of, and we wanted to compare, well, not 800x. What is CFD on GPUs? We researched their model has made a big effort over many years. Double the speed for sort of the best part of most and that of its running time. So if you reduce, you don't speed it up. I feel we're doing okay. by 68%. There's this Suka weather that he never who knows what, but it runs at 50 on the K20. And so, well, they ran on 4,108 GPUs, and the K20 of the very seem to be very different. It's a this. I'm okay. Oh, all right. Well, maybe they lost some because they ran out. Okay, so then we should be proud, okay? Because and then there's the Swiss team. It sort of visited the place. They talked a lot about. Obviously, worked very people, and but we did all that stuff along a lot of effort. They got a 4.5x speed up, but they're doing which involves many 4 times something, but because they did a suspicious thing, not to define the meaning of 1. So they did reveal something, and to GPU performance, new compiler, which is one way to get that down. They got 5 times speed up by running 8 on a Sandy Bridge CPU, which is really small. Running 6. And so I suspect is maybe a half like that. I know what 1 is for them. And so the conclusion is doing as well, possibly better. And maybe this is something that would be for people. Somebody else went through all this struggle for that. Of course, the idea is Pei-Hung Lin later moved totally to work. Put like the one that is guaranteed. They are buying lots and lots and lots of GPUs, high motivation to make it more general, just for particularly since I deliver more. So, your questions, I think I probably run out of time. Okay.